Namaskar, a very warm welcome on the behalf of Elets Technomedia. I, Anuj, will be your host for today's next edition of Power Utilities Conclave, being presented by SAS India. So, this whole series of webinar, or what we call it, virtual conclave, is intended to discuss and deliberate about a very important subject, which is utilities. Utilities have become a very integral part of our life. And in fact, that is what we all know very well. And in this series of webinar, we are specifically going to talk about power utilities, power, energy, or electricity, what we call. Without this, we cannot imagine our lives. So this brings us to a very important subject or a very important issue to talk about a productive and a more, clean source of energy being transmitted to the end user. And in today's time, a very burning issue in power sector is checking the transmission and distribution losses, okay, which is very substantial in a country like India. So we, Elets Technomedia, are proud to present this series, which is going to discuss and deliberate about various issues which are creating hindrance in a quality power supply to the end user. According to a survey done in 2021 by a leading research organization, TND losses in India are comparatively very high as compared to any other country. In fact, in many parts of our country, it is even more than 20% of the generation, and this is twice what is average of the whole world. So the ideal TND losses ranges between 6 to 8%. So this brings to a very important subject of discussing and deliberating about what could be the possible way or outcomes to bring down these losses. We are living in a technology or digital transformation era, and technology definitely is an answer to this problem. And we can reduce our losses. We can increase the various monitoring and optimizing tools. Analytics can be come into role play, AI, and through these solutions we can actually remove a lot of hindrances or a lot of problems which are causing this adequate power supply. So with this, I welcome all the viewers, all the audience to this edition of Power Utilities Conclave. Over the course of next couple of hours, you guys are going to witness a lot of decision makers, policy makers concerning to various utilities countries, various utilities, I beg your pardon, various utilities across the country. Energy secretaries from the states like Maharashtra, Telangana are going to talk about their visions and roadmap pertaining to this adequate power supply and what are their plans to increase the productivity of the electricity. So and we are also going to be joined by some leading experts, industrial experts from SAS India, our presenting partner for this webinar series. So, without any delay, I will start the proceedings and moving ahead with the very first session of today's webinar. It is going to be a keynote session to be delivered by Mr. Dinesh Wagmare, the Principal Secretary of Energy Department from Maharashtra. This session will be moderated by our CEO, Dr. Ravi Gupta. So over to Dr. Ravi to start the proceedings of the day. And all you guys, please sit back tight and for next couple of hours, you are not going to regret being part of this webinar. So over to Dr. Ravi.
Namaskar, everyone. I am Ravi Gupta. I am founder and CEO of Elets Technomedia Private Limited, which is the publisher of eGov magazine. eGov magazine is India's and Asia's first and the only magazine focusing on IT implementation in the government sector. And today, we are honored to have with us Mr. Dinesh Wagmare, who is the Principal Secretary Energy, Government of Maharashtra. He also holds the additional charge as the Chairman and Managing Director of Maharashtra State Electricity Transmission Corporation Company Limited. Mr. Dinesh Wagmare belongs to the 1994 batch of IES, and he possesses more than 26 years of experience in the spheres of management and administration. Welcomes, Dinesh, we are honored to have you with us.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir. First of all, we would request you to highlight some of the achievements of your department in the last financial year, and what is the vision of the department for the future in terms of improving efficiency and bringing in reforms in the sector. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, in the last financial year, power sector in Maharashtra actually excelled very well. And in fact, we were the first in ranking, in all over India ranking. And in fact, last financial year was very challenging one. One thing, the COVID effect was still there. And despite COVID effect and despite many challenges, financial challenges as well as manpower challenges, we were able to give 24/7 power supply. The second challenge we face about availability of coal. In fact, that was a coal crisis happened. And in fact, getting coal was very difficult. And despite that situation, in fact, our thermal power station, particularly of Maharashtra State Power Generation Company, we were able to actually bring all our units on bar. And basically all our units were actually in MOD. And we were able to actually generate around 9,000 megawatt plus thermal power from our MSPGCL substations. Also from the transmission side, actually, we transmitted record power. 28,000 megawatt was actually record power transmitted in the last financial year, which was actually a record for Maharashtra. And also our distribution, the biggest distribution company, Maharashtra State Electricity Distribution Company. So that carried around 24,000 megawatt of power. So in fact, we were able to achieve a lot of this. And particularly in the renewable energy sector also, we were able to bring new policy for the renewable energy developer. And that policy basically envisages exemption in electricity duty for all captive generator, all captive renewable energy generator. And secondly, non-agriculture tax exemption for solar as well as wind generator, and single window system. And also, in fact, our honorable cabinet mandated that 50% of power should be procured from the solar and wind power and renewable energy generators located within Maharashtra. And there are a lot of facilitation provisions provided in the amended renewable energy policy. So, and from transmission side also, a lot of interventions, technological intervention like use of drones, use of thermal imaging installed on the drones. So, in fact, that was actually done very successfully instead of manual patrolling of transmission towers. And also Maharashtra Asset Management Center project actually could progress further, whereas we had taken 22 substations for remote monitoring and control. Also, we have also envisaged VSAT system for improving visibility of all our substations and transmission lines. In fact, for the way forward, our biggest challenge is the distribution sector, and distribution sector actually a lot of recovery is pending, and financial status of distribution company is actually suffering quite a lot. And for that, in fact, our main goal is to how we can reduce the distribution losses, average technical and commercial losses, which we normally call as the AT&C losses. And also, we would like to optimize the distribution network and, in fact, make reliable power available to the citizens at a lower cost with bundling of renewable energy. With renewable energy will be basically a thrust area for us. And in fact, we had set a target of 17,000 megawatt to be achieved in the next 5 years. And out of that 17,000 megawatt, 12,500 megawatt will be in solar. And we are focusing more on solar. And secondly, actually, renewable energy integration would be a big challenge for us. How we can integrate renewable energy, considering and keeping the base load as thermal, gas, and hydro generator will be a really big challenge, because renewable energy is basically inform power, and that integration poses a greater challenge. So that exactly is a action plan, future action plan for the energy sector in Maharashtra.
Great, sir. It's great to see that several forward-looking initiatives are being planned. You have touched upon the various use of IT sector in this, IT in the power sector in your department. But if you can highlight in a bit more detail that what are the, because the government of India is also now pushing for Digital India and various usage of IT tools in the power sector to reduce the losses. So if you can highlight some of the interventions or the vision in this direction.
Actually the greatest initiative in IT sector we are going to take will be basically in the area of metering. And it's a huge initiative we have taken under the revamped distribution sector scheme. As you know, all the distribution companies are suffering from a lot of losses, and basically AT&C losses are quite high, and as well as actually ACS minus ARR gap has to be zero. The power has to be reliable, and particularly the billing has to be correct. Whatever the energy usage, the customer has to be satisfied with the reading, meter reading, and actually the correct billing. And that is a basic, in fact, thrust given by our state. And we have actually focused on metering infrastructure. And basically this metering will be smart metering, and it will be basically prepaid metering. And the initial phases like MSCDCL being a state power distribution utility, we have around 2.5 crore customers. And out of that, we have targeted around 1.5 crore customers. 1.5 crore customers, we are going to install smart prepaid meters. And with the total cost of 11,500 crore. So that's a big project, and our Honorable State Cabinet has already given approval, and we have sent proposal to Government of India. Secondly, actually SCADA system, of course SCADA system is there in transmission, and load dispatch center is having SCADA system, but this SCADA system was not prevalent. It was only in urban area, in some of the urban area pockets in distribution. So now actually distribution sector, this SCADA system will be implemented in all the major urban centers, and we'll be able to get the correct data. Secondly, Maharashtra Asset Management Center, where actually we have taken a pilot project of 22 substations presently we have taken. And there we are implementing of remote monitoring and control of substations. So these substations will be remotely monitored and controlled, and there will be a minimal manpower deployed at this substation. And there will be actually operation will be from the central location. And in fact, by that way, the system will be more reliable. Thirdly, actually visibility of our 400 kV transmission line is there almost 100%, but then the visibility of our 132 kV line and 200 kV lines is not there, or it's very less. So we want to improve this visibility. So we are taking a project of VSAT networking. So with the help of VSAT, we'll be able to. Of course, there are optical fibers at many of the places. So along with the optical fibers, another mode of communication will be VSAT network. So we'll be able to get the data from VSAT network. And all the interface between transmission and generation, interface between transmission and distribution. So that actually we have already converted all the meters into automatic meters. From generation also, actually a lot of IT initiatives have been taken. And all these companies' major thrust is on use of artificial intelligence technology. So whereas data collection, data analysis will become easier. And actually we are focusing more on use of artificial intelligence in all our power utilities.
Fantastic. I think it's a great to see that so much IT implementation and action has already started in your department. Let me just bring in the industry expert, Mr. Abhinav Sood from SAS, and I will request his 2 minutes comments on IT intervention and especially on AI and ML in the power sector. Over to you, Abhinav.
Thank you, Ravi, and thank you, sir, for joining us and sharing those valuable insights with us. Every time we speak to you, we get to learn some new things. And today also, I think, before me adding anything, I think sir has touched upon most of the topics himself. So I've quickly jotted down what sir specifically called out. Sir called out specifically around AT&C loss reduction. Sir spoke about ACS and ARR reduction, gap reduction primarily. Sir specifically spoke about renewable energy integration in the grid. I think very important point. Inform integration is very important, and it's a major challenge to grid security these days, right? And going forward with the kind of schemes which we have, and the advent of solar power, specifically in the solar rooftop area, uh, integrating this inform power into the grid is going to be a challenge, and adjusting your demand forecast also will be a challenge. I think that is where this technology from AI/ML standpoint will be important, because machine learning technologies, they usually improve over a period of time, right? So the whole concept of having a machine learning algorithm is that it will learn as to what your current profile is, and over a period of time it will try to predict as to how it will change. So the factors which sir spoke about, specifically around loss reduction, specifically around theft detection, specifically around renewable energy integration, I think definitely forecasting and theft detection from AI/ML standpoint will be very relevant. Also, sir specifically called out metering initiatives, right? So 2.5 crore consumers, huge number of consumers. Even if half of them get metered, you understand that these meters are going to generate 15-minute data, right? Now, in order to handle that 15-minute data on a daily basis is impossible for a human being. And that is where a machine learning algorithm, mostly from data mining standpoints, become important, because you have to mine this data on a daily basis and also on real-time basis to understand what is going wrong. All the demand response activities which are going to happen going forward should ideally happen through an analytics platform, which should have those AML data mining capabilities which are required. One more point, sir, which I also I would like to hear your thoughts around that one. SCADA integration is specifically called out, sir. So we understand that SCADA is already implemented in MSc DCL and MSc TCL also. You have got SCADA which is already there. One issue which we have seen with multiple utilities, the extraction of data from the SCADA systems. Now, over a period of time, both the utilities have invested heavily in implementing these SCADA systems, right? And going forward, also like sir specified in RDSS, there will be multiple more investments which will happen into this initiative. But what happens is these SCADA systems usually have a proprietary historian, and extracting data from these become a challenge, right? Now, there is no point just monitoring data on a SCADA system, right? It is very important, since you have made those investments, to make sense of that data also going forward. So a very good initiative which we are running for some of our customers, and we would like to take your guidance also in that one, sir, would be extracting this data from the existing SCADA systems and doing correlation analysis with the meter data, because you have deployed AMI, AMRs across the license area, both MSc TCL and MSc DCL. You have got SCADA also, which is implemented. Now, this data, which is of good quality data of a very low granularity. So our SCADA system is around 2 seconds per tag, while AMI data is 15 minutes per tag. So if you are able to correlate this data and use it for multiple initiatives, for example, demand forecasting, or load shedding protocols, if you have to implement, or in case of outage management, these insights will be very relevant as to where all my power is going to go. If in case there's an outage, where all my maintenance activity should go first. A very good case which we found out, sir, with one of our customer was that even though there was an outage in two places, usually they used to look at the overall size of the customer. I mean, the overall power delivery which used to happen in that injection point. While it was also important to look at the revenue which they were getting, even though one was a domestic area while the other was one was a residential area, there were certain mandatory services which are going on. So if those mandatory services like hospitals are halted, it will lead to huge issues going forward in the state. And these are all mandatory services. So if you are able to do what if analysis in real time using the SCADA data, then I think that would drive real value, and it will be good for the state also, good for the citizens also of the state. So I think this could be some areas wherein we believe that AI/ML, and they are all low-hanging fruits. Since you have already implemented SCADA, you already have AMI in place. It is just that you need to have a AI/ML solution which can readily integrate through the SCADA systems, integrate through the AMI systems, bring all the information together, and provide you real-time alerts. So we can actually, these are some of the areas where we believe that significant value could be added to the operations of both the transmission and distribution companies. Sir. Just my two thoughts, sir. Just my few thoughts for your consumption, sir. Rest, I thank you so much for your guidance and support, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
So, taking it forward, sir, like recently the government of India has highlighted that the power reforms are of very much importance, and the Prime Minister himself has highlighted that we should reduce the overall losses of the sector. So, you have already highlighted steps towards it. Are there any policy reforms being planned in this direction of reduction of losses and overall bringing efficiency in the sector? Overall policy interventions or reforms, if any?
Basically, in fact, the overall reform process is centered on basically smart metering, installation of smart metering infrastructure, and emphasis on loss reduction strategies. And loss reduction strategies are more important for distribution utility. For transmission sector, actually losses are very low. So presently our losses in MSCTCL is 2.8 to 2.9%, which is actually well standard all over the world, in fact. So in fact, there are technical limitations over reduction of losses in transmission sectors. Of course, we can actually go for source voltage converter technology, or we can go for STATCOM, and we can go for conversion of ACSR conductor with STLS conductor. But then actually then loss reduction will not be much, because it basically is constrained by the technological factors. But there are a lot of actually scope of loss reduction as far as the distribution utilities are concerned, where the lines are 33 kV, 22 kV, and 11 kV lines are there. So there are a lot of actually potential for loss reduction. And these loss reduction, we are basically targeting into different strategies. One is the feeder segregation. And that is the most important initiatives. In fact, we are going to take feeder segregation of particularly agriculture feeder segregation will have a great impact. And that will also the energy cost to the farmers. Then another technology of conductor is aerial bunch cable. So this aerial bunch cable has been very effective in reduction of theft. And we are taking up this activity on a large scale. In high voltage distribution system, this is also actually will be beneficial for the farmers. Then reactive power compensation is also one of the important factor which is important for loss reduction. And installation of capacitor as substations will basically pave way for the reduction of losses due to reactive power compensation. Then of course, IT/OT related works also we would like to take. Then strengthening of current distribution network is also important, and would like to set up new substations, then augmentation of substations and new HT, LT lines and capacity addition to that. New distribution transformers will come up. augmentation of present distribution transform will come up. SCADA and DMS system. Demand management system is also important. And from IT initiative, that is the important initiative we are going to take. So these are some of the actually initiatives we would take.
Of course. And in the end, sir, I wish to ask you that after the COVID has happened, the demand of customers for power has dramatically increased across the country. And it's like increasing our usage of IT devices, usage of IT, everything is increasing the demand a lot. So, and is the, like, how are the power organization, power companies able to meet this increasing demand day by day? And there is, like, we hear about this crisis of coal and any other crisis. Overall, there is a government of India has like set up a target for clean energy also. So in these context, there is increasing demand, and you are getting inputs like reduction of traditional sources of energy. So how do a power organization handle these dramatic changing situation and dramatic changing environment around you?
Yeah, actually, post-COVID, actually, there is a lot of increase in demand, and particularly if we see in the, as far as the commercial and industrial activity, that activity has picked up. And as I told earlier, that last financial year, we registered a record demand of 28,000 megawatt. In fact, the transmission company handled 28,000 megawatt, and our distribution utility handled around 24,000 megawatt, and that was the highest ever demand we experienced. In fact, now how we can meet this demand? Normally, actually, the CAGR, like year-on-year basis, energy increases around 3 to 4%. So if we consider that, maybe in the 5 years, the energy demand, if we go on increasing at 3 to 4%, we will be able to manage very well. But that doesn't seem to be actually the case. So the demand is going to increase manifold. Like the data centers, a lot of data centers are coming, and these data centers require huge power. Like some of the bigger data centers, they require power of 500 megawatts. Some of the data centers, they are also have a requirement of 1000 megawatt. Now this is actually a huge figure, because the whole Mumbai city itself, on an average demand is 2,800 megawatt. And if one data center is asking for 1,000 of megawatt, then it will become very difficult to actually cater to this demand. But the basic thrust will be more on renewable energy. So renewable energy, of course, our Honorable Prime Minister has set up a huge target of renewable energy. There's around 500 gigawatt by 2040. So it's a huge target. And we as a state also has set up a target of 17,000 megawatt. And that 17,000, although it's a modest target, but actually, in fact, it is achievable. And out of that 17,000 megawatt, 12,500 megawatt will come from solar. And for that renewable energy sector, we have given a lot of incentive, which I had earlier, in fact, enumerated. And we are coming up with some of the substations like Velgaon and Kalwa 2 substations, which will bring in another 1,000 megawatt to 1,500 megawatt. So overall, actually, if we're getting power into Mumbai, so almost in the next 3 to 4 years, 3,800 to 4,000 megawatt will be added into the Mumbai system. Also, pumped storage is also coming up in a huge way. One of the private utilities recently signed MOU with the government of Maharashtra of setting up 11,000 megawatt of pumped hydro plants. So this pumped hydro will be very much useful at the time of peak demand situations. So we have made a plan for actually the power demands of Maharashtra for the next 10 years, 15 years, and a longer term plan for 25 years.
Fantastic. Like, I think the vision and the implementation plan which you have explained is like exemplary, and it's highly likely that the Maharashtra energy sector will be much more efficient and will reduce its losses and will be highly competitive across the country. So we wish you the best, and I request Mr. Abhinav Sood from SAS for his closing remarks and word of thanks to you. Abhinav, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Thank you so much, sir, so for sharing such valuable insights with us. I think to sum it up, sir perfectly called out the various issues which we are currently facing not only in Maharashtra but also across India. I think Maharashtra being one of the more advanced states, and they are at a much advanced stage compared to other utilities. The kind of investments they have made and the kind of projects they are envisaging and the kind of load growth they are expecting, I think that is something which cannot expect it in the other states. And I think the challenges which you are going to see are going to be the first of its kind in India. And I think you will be the leader who will guide us and other utilities as to how you should handle these issues and proceed further. So thank you so much for sharing those insights, sir. I think after talking to you, I also believe that there is huge space from AIML perspective in this space. And with your guidance and permission, I think the Indian power sector itself will grow further in future, sir. Thank you so much for your time and comments, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar.
No.
Thank you.
Well, that was indeed a very great opening session for today's Power Utilities Conclave, and very well explained by Mr. Dinesh Wagmare, the Principal Secretary of Maharashtra Government. In fact, I would like to also highlight a couple of initiatives that he stated, that about the usage of drones, thermal imaging, and also the asset management systems for remote monitoring the transmission centers. So definitely that shows that Maharashtra has been in the front and has been a state which has been adopting technology right from the beginning, but now they just need a bit of more AI ML solutions, as rightly stated by Abhinav. So next we move on to the second session of the day, which is going to be another fireside chat session, this time from Maharashtra. Now we are going to take you straight to the state of Telangana, wherein we have our policymaker and expert from the government side, Mr. A. Gopal Rao, the chairman and managing director of Northern Power Distribution Company of Telangana. So again, as our subject is about the usage of AI/ML and futuristic technologies to minimize the losses, to minimize the outages, and also to ensure clean, reliable, and sustainable power supply, Mr. Gopal Rao is going to showcase and tell us about his vision for the government of Telangana. And this session is going to be moderated by my colleague and our special projects head, Mr. K.C. Mishra. So over to Mr. Mishra for this session.
And a very warm welcome to today's conference session on Power Utilities Conclave. This Power Utilities Conclave is being brought to you by Elets Technomedia in industry partnership with SAS India. Power Utilities Conclave is a series of online virtual dialogues wherein Elets and SAS have partnered throughout the length and breadth of the country. We have gone to different locations, different states, and we have tried to identify what are the major challenges, what are the key opportunities, and what is the roadmap for revamp of the power distribution sector in India. We are envisioning a situation where the the aggregate commercial and transmission and distribution losses can be brought down to a level of 10 to 12%. We are going to achieve that vision of Government of India. So how can technology play a major part in this transformation? What role can technology play in plugging the revenue leakages? What role can technology play in augmenting the overall efficiency of the power sector in the country? And what is the roadmap and where do we go from here? This would be the topic of today's dialogue. We have with us the Chairman and Managing Director of Northern Power Distribution Company of Telangana Limited, Mr. A. Gopal Rao. A very warm welcome, Mr. Gopal Rao.
Thank you very much.
And from the industry side, I am honored to welcome here my colleague from SAS India, Mr. Praveen Rao. A very warm welcome to this program, Praveen.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the invitation.
To start with, my question for CMD, Northern Power Distribution Company of Telangana, Mr. Gopal Rao. One of the major objectives of TS NPDCL has to modernize and strengthen the distribution network so as to provide reliable, uninterrupted, and quality power. What innovative steps have been taken to achieve this, Mr. Gopal Rao? And before you answer this question, you may also like to throw light on the status of or the state of your organization before the formation of Telangana state, and what has been the achievements, key achievements in the recent years since the inception of the state. Mr. Gopal Rao.
Before formation, the Telangana used to reel under the power, failure of the power, and it has witnessed so many problems. There was, though there was a 2,700 odd megawatts demand at that time, and we were having a frequent interruptions. Even the industries used to have 2 days as a power holidays, and the agriculture used to get not even 6 hours continuously, that too in 2 spells. As a result, the most of the fields dried and the transformers failed, and most of the workers were living on winding of the motors that have burned. So all these things were the result of the then government administration on power sector. So as soon as the Telangana is formed, see, our visionary CM Sri K. Chandrasekhar Rao Garu has taken up the importance of the electricity as one of the basic need for development of any state or any utilities. So that was the chapter what he has taken up. Not only he has visualized the importance, but he has taken pains to select the person to head this organization. So accordingly, Mr. Prabhakar Rao was chosen as a CMD Transco Genco, who was well versed with the finances of the company. He worked as a finance chief. He worked as a member finance for the then utilities, then APSCB, and subsequent to formation also he was director in director finance in Genco. So as a result of that, this power sector was not in a problem to have any finances from any organization. So this was the very important, as every one of us know, finance is the major item that really keeps on developing the whatever organization. It is the necessity of the finances. So accordingly, he has chosen Prabhakar Rao Garu, and with his vision, he has really made this organization a turnaround from darkness to brightness. So we have invested about altogether 36,000 crores for development of the infrastructure and as well as the development of the generation of the power. So this was the situation before formation of the. Now we are able to meet the demand of 14,160 megawatts. You just see how the development is. So this is the recently we met 14,160, and day consumption is also really 240 million units. So at present the situation is most of the states are reeling under the power crisis, whereas Telangana is the only state where we are giving an uninterrupted power sector to all consumers, including the agriculture. We are now constructing a gas-based substation of 220, 132 and 33 kV at Hyderabad with compact area. So this is how the Telangana state is flourishing, and the present capacity, per unit capacity is 2,000 odd against the central average is 1,300. Now we are supplying 24 hours to agriculture services freely, which is not done by any state in this country. Coming to the technological, I can definitely say one of the TSMP object is to modernize the strength. See, to cater electricity distribution requirement, 63 we are having, NPDCL is having a 63.48 lakh consumers, out of which 12.51 lakhs are agricultural consumers. Basically, this agriculture consumer is dominated, and we are supplying 24 hours. We can very well assess the paddy production in this state. Once it was depend on the Andhra state and other states for paddy. Now we are able to supply paddy to all other countries. Just like Punjab, we are able to supply this paddy. We want everyone living in this Telangana should be avail this facility of electricity. That is the aim of our government, and we are the instrumental in achieving the results.
Wonderful, Mr. Gopal Rao, for taking us through the journey of NPTCL. What is the Mool mantra which you would like to attribute to? The mantra behind the success of NPTCL in particular and Telangana's overall power scenario in general? Because you mentioned a lot of initiatives which are unique to the state of Telangana, like you were mentioning that it is one of the few states which is actually power surplus, which is able to supply 24/7 reliable power supply. 60% of it is being given free of cost to the farmers. Some of it is being given at a subsidized rates to the SCs and STs and the socially vulnerable classes. And your revenue pool is only coming from 40% of the total revenue bucket. So how are you able to manage the finances and still you are growing and still you are, you have got a healthy roadmap for the future?
Government is advancing the subsidy to the agriculture sector and to the subsidized sector. Of course, may not be sufficient, but still we are trying our level best. As I have already informed you, our losses has come down from 15% to 10%. There is a 5% saving of the energy losses. It is a substantial amount. And as a result of the capacitors, agriculture consumption will also come down. See, our mission is to supply the electricity at reasonable rates, uninterruptedly, qualitatively. This is our vision and mission. And we are also trying to totally transform into a company style. See, we are also trying to identify where the weakness are there, where the strength is there. So this way we have achieved all these results.
Sir, how do you view technology as an enabler to achieve your future vision and future mission?
Technology, usage of the technology is important in the IT is one of the important aspects to have a manual interruption and also to speed up restoration of the supply. That is one of the, now we are trying to have a unmanned substation so that the manpower can be reduced. So that also helps. When we go for the unmanned substations, then it will have a definitely automatic restoration of supply by having so many. So these all involves, everyone knows, expenditure. So finance is also a big problem. As you have already, without finances, how are you meeting? So we have to plan in such a way that with the little expenditure, what best results we can achieve. See, with all these things, we were able to reduce the losses from 15 to 10%. It is an indication. And one more thing is, this is per capita consumption is also, it's again an indication. As we have really committed, this electricity is one of the important for the living of the mankind. Even it has even overtaken the air and water. See, air and water also now needs electricity to purify them. So without electricity, it is very difficult to live by the mankind. So that way, even our government is giving a priority for hospitals. See, they want to have two alternate supply. Any interruption should be avoided as far as possible, because even the COVID time, shortage of oxygen was there, but this was all we have overtaken by having a plenty of power supply and Of course, the government was very keen to have a more and more oxygen centers. So likewise, so every one of, even during the COVID, our staff was very vigilant, and they have really made efforts to maintain the uninterrupted supply and made the consumers to safely stay at their homes during the entire period of the COVID. See, that is the efforts of
Hats
the,
off,
that is
hats
the
off
commitment.
to,
That is the
hats off.
commitment of the, not only the officers, but even the workers or the down level staff.
Let me bring in our industry expert from SAS India, Mr. Praveen Rao. My question to you, how can companies, MNCs, technology solution providers like SAS India can collaborate with companies like NPDCL to achieve their vision and mission?
Specifically on the technology side, so when there is multiple investments has been done by the government, so it is very much important to utilize those investments and to bring certain ROIs from those investments. So let's say sir has mentioned about establishing multiple substations, and there is a huge investment has been made to ensure uninterrupted power to the agriculture sector. State have certain vision towards addressing these particular sectors. The way the industry is increasing, there are new setups coming across the Hyderabad or the other parts of the state. So the energy need is going high day by day. So the energy need, the predictions, the maintenance. So there are multiple things happening post-COVID. Post-COVID, the government have certain tasks to complete their visions. So government is working very aggressively to address those concerns. So mostly I would like to just highlight 3 points. Point one is for a DISCOM or a power sector to grow or to address the need of the citizens, a decision support system has to be piped up, and I think that is one of the critical component which need to be improved. Second, on the revenue assurance, that there should be certain technologies where the revenue should be going up, and the decision support system should be supported in terms of revenue also, that most of the DISCOM companies should be achieving those revenues. The third is the asset performance, because there is a huge investment in the assets. There is a huge setup of assets. So certain tools need to be, certain tools are required to manage those assets. So let's say what I propose here is, in the case of analytics actually empowers the organization to take decisions. They don't interrupt their existing operations, but they empowers the organization to take decisions. In terms of whenever there is we as an organization, we work with more than 560 power companies across the world. There are certain areas where we have assured for the forecasting, for the managing of assets, for managing the entire compliances. So there are certain areas like assets and operations, customer analytics, portfolio, meter. There are certain areas where analytics can really bring those changes, and with not very huge investments. That's also I want to highlight, because sir has also highlighted that. So in terms of analytics, we have a holistic approach where we can actually work on certain load forecasting portfolio areas. We can really work on certain areas like asset and operational performances. We can help out the organization, which as recently I have highlighted about my existing work with TSS PDCL about revenue assurance, that how to improve the billing and collections, how to establish the predictive models for payment behaviors and detect some non-technical losses or some revenue losses. So on the end, as we are serving to the country or serving to the state, customer analytics is also very important, that how to analyze the customer segments, how to design and execute the most effective campaigns, and how to integrate all this data and bring it to source table or the management table to take decisions. So in my case, in my comments specifically on this, these are certain areas where SAS have a definite expertise. And from bottom of my heart, I would like to meet sir, and we can showcase these technologies or these approaches that is running successfully across the globe.
Thank you. Praveen Rao, my best wishes to you. We do look forward to more such collaborations between organizations like NPDCL and service solution providers like SAS India. As you rightly mentioned, yes, analytics is having a paramount importance these days in decision making, and it is of utmost importance for decision makers like Mr. A. Gopal Rao to have right type of information at their desk so that they can arrive at very informed decisions. So with this, we come to a conclusion of this today's dialogue, today's session on Power Utilities Conclave. Our immense thanks to Chairman and Managing Director of Northern Power Distribution Company of Telangana Limited, Mr. A. Gopal Rao. Mr. Gopal Rao gave us some really good insight about the operations of NPDCL. It was very heartening to know from him that NPDCL and the state of Telangana in general is one of the few states which is power surplus. They have been able to do some social welfare activities as well as without hampering their overall revenue finances and operational finances. So with this, we come to a conclusion of the session, and thank you very much. Best wishes. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mishra. That was indeed a very insightful and very enriching session. In fact, very good to know that we have states like Telangana who are providing uninterrupted power supply to all the consumers, and at the same time they have been immensely focusing on taking electricity and power as one of the basic necessities of the government's vision. So I think that was very interesting to know from Mr. A. Gopal Rao. And next, we'll move ahead, with a session, a panel discussion. In fact, this panel discussion will be moderated by again my colleague, Mr. Krishna Mishra. And the topic of this panel would be about artificial intelligence and machine learning in power sector. And this session will have, various thought leaders and policymakers from the state of Haryana, Orissa, Kerala, and so on. So, as promised in the beginning, that the next couple of hours will be very insightful for you. So now this panel discussion promises to bring and throw light on a lot of important subjects, and especially the role of AI, ML technology, and advanced analytics in providing sustainable and reliable power supply. And we have our industrial expert again, Abhinav Sood, who is the industry consultant for energy and utilities from SAS India, and he's going to address various problems and solutions to the minimizing the losses, T&D losses. And in this session, he's going to in fact talk about various solutions and offerings of SAS in this whole journey. So I'll now hand over the virtual dais to my colleague, Mr. Mishra, again. Please, Mr. Mishra, take it forward.
Can be modified through the AI which is already there.
Namaskar and a very warm welcome to today's edition of Elets Power Utilities Conclave 2022. Elets Power Utilities Conclave is brought to you by Elets Technomedia in collaboration with its industry partner SAS. It is a series of virtual dialogues through which Elets and SAS have been trying to create a disseminate knowledge on the role of technology in improving the efficiencies and overhaul of the India's power sector. The power sector is very crucial for the country's economic growth. If the country aspires to become a $5 trillion economy in the next few years, then that aspiration will have to be fueled by the power sector. And it is rightly said that the growth and development of any country is directly proportional to the power consumption. Historically, the power sector has been plagued by some issues which are too well known in the public domain. Ministry of Power has been working overtime these days to bring an overall transformation in the sector, and this transformation of the sector cannot be possible without introducing new age emerging technologies. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are some of the technologies which have the power to catapult this sector from old age utilities to modern futuristic organizations. So we have with us an eminent speaker from the state of Haryana, Dr. Saket Kumar, an IAS officer of 2005 batch from Haryana cadre. Dr. Saket is currently working as Managing Director in Uttar Haryana Bijli Vitran Nigam. A very warm welcome, Dr. Saket.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Saket Kumar would shortly be joined by fellow panelists from different states like Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Maharashtra, and of course our industry expert, Arvind Sood from SAS. So I have been joined by Mr. Bhaskar Sarkar also. Bhaskar Sarkar is representing Tata Power Northern Odisha Distribution Company, and he's currently the Chief Executive Officer there. Warm welcome, Bhaskar.
Thank you.
The topic of this panel discussion is very plain and simple: the power of AI and ML in bringing an overhaul in the power sector, a promising future. Let us quickly go to Dr. Saket Kumar for his opening comments and views on this topic. Over to you, Dr. Saket.
Thank you, Mr. Saab. Distinguished panelists, experts, organizers, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Managing Director of Uttar Haryana Bijli Vitran Nigam. It is a government entity. We supply power to the 10 northern districts of Haryana, and we have a total connected load of 14,344 megawatts and revenue generation of about 13,738 crores and a consumer base of 35 lakh consumers. So over a period of last 3-4 years, we have done well in loss reduction. There was a Haryana specific program that was implemented that is called Mara Gaon Jagmag Gaon scheme. And in that Mara Gaon Jagmag Gaon scheme, we undertook a large scale replacement of conductors with cables, armored cables, then taking out the meters and also other similar initiatives, by which our losses came to a reasonable level, and the Government of India recognized our efforts and ranked us State of Haryana second in the 9th annual integrated rating by MOP. So now today's topic is about the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning applications in discoms. So I think after you do these electromechanical interventions of loss reduction, after that a certain stage reaches where the further loss reduction needs these intelligent technologies. And to implement that, of course, Government of India has also come with the RDSS scheme. And in the RDSS scheme, we have to engage a project management consultant also. We have floated tenders for that. So in the mandate of that project management consultant is the implementation of SCADA technology and also other system strengthening things. So through the RDSS scheme, we will be adopting these AI and machine learning technologies. And in my opinion, there are 4-5 broad areas in which we really have good use of these technologies. The first will be accurate and reliable demand forecasting. That is a very significant area. We all have seen the crisis that the power sector felt during the months of April and May. And I think with the availability of informed powers like the solar power, which is not available round the clock, accurate and reliable demand forecasting is very useful to integrate these types of parts with our main state that has largely been the coal-based power. So first area where we really find the use of this technology is the reliable demand forecasting. The second would be alerts on theft detection and preventive maintenance. That is another area of interest. Then of course, the use of AI is there in business support and customer services. And there are things like chatbot and IT help desk and back office administrative functions. These are the areas in which we are looking into various AI interventions. In fact, we have adopted some, like we have a full-fledged IT help desk. We are also utilizing the services of chatbot, which takes care of much of the consumer grievances. And then again, the AI managed smart grid, renewables, electric vehicle. In this area also, with the increasing number of volatile power generation plants such as solar and wind, it is becoming more and more important that power generation reacts intelligently to consumption. And in that also, the use of AI and ML will have a great role. So I personally foresee a great future of these technology in the management of power utilities. And as we go about it, as we improve our systems, as we go for more and more consumer satisfaction, I think these technologies will have a great role and we will be adopting them in a phased and progressive manner. So that is the basic thing that I would like to convey to this conclave. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Dr. Saket Kumar. Those who have just joined us, let me introduce Dr. Saket Kumar. Is a 2000 batch IAS officer of Haryana Cadre. Currently heading the Uttar Haryana Bijli Discom. So we have here with us our industry expert, industry consultant for energy and utilities from SAS India, Avinav Sood. Avinav, do you have any question for Dr. Saket Kumar? He just mentioned about the role of AI and ML and what are the various initiatives. He talked about the role of AI and ML, particularly in giving an accurate and reliable demand forecast, load forecast. We talk about how it can be helpful in reducing theft and leakages and also increasing the overall efficiencies. Avinav, any question for Dr. Saket?
No, sir, I think sir has already deliberated about what all we are supposed to know. So right now we are good to go, sir.
I have a question for Dr. Saket. Dr. Saket, your Discom is considered to be one of the pioneers in implementing smart meters for its consumers. How do you plan to generate insights from this huge data? Because smart meters would be giving you access to a large amount of data.
You see, as I already mentioned, in the RDS scheme, there is an important component of SCADA. So that supplementary control and data acquisition system we will be implementing. That data will come to us, and then for interpretation of that data, we will be needing the AI and ML technologies. And for interpretation of that, we will be actively engaging with our PMA consultant. We will have a roadmap chalked out in consultation with him, what technologies we actually need for effective implementation of that data. And with the help of that data, we will go into the areas of effective, energy management related to demand and supply. And of course, the other part will be, generation of revenues, prevention of leakages, and increasing the consumer satisfaction. These are the areas on which we are looking through the use of smart meters. But of course, to go into the nitty-gritty of it will be after a deliberation with the PMA that we are going to engage.
Thank you, Dr. Saket. We wish that under your dynamic leadership, your Discom achieves the greater heights through usage and leverage of effective technology. So once again, let me welcome all the panelists here. I can see on the screen, Mr. Anil Kolap has joined us. Anil Kolap is Director of Operations in Maharashtra State Electricity Distribution Company. A very warm welcome, Anil Kolap. Bhaskar Sarkar was already there with us, Chief Executive Officer of Tata Power Northern Odisha Discom. Maharashtra State Electricity Distribution, I can see Prashad Resme. Can I request Prashad Resme to switch on his camera, please? Yes, he is already there. So very warm welcome to you, all of you once again. I am Krishna Mishra here from Elets Technomedia. This online virtual dialogue, Power Utilities Conclave. This conclave is brought to you by Elets Technomedia in collaboration with its industry partner, SAS. The objective of the conference is to create a greater awareness on how new and emerging technologies can bring a transformation in the power sector. We had our earlier speaker, Dr. Saket Kumar, Managing Director of Uttar Haryana Bijli Nigam Limited, who shared his insight. I would like to take on the discussion to Bhaskar Sarkar now, heading the TP Northern Odisha Discom. Bhaskar Sarkar, your perspective on this topic, the role of emerging technologies, AI and ML in improving the efficiencies of the power sector. Over to you, Bhaskar.
Yeah, thank you, and good afternoon to all the panelists. This is Bhaskar Sarkar. As just to spend 2 minutes on the TP Northern Odisha Distribution Limited, this is a newly taken over distribution business and taken over by Tata Power in the northern part of Odisha. And this part of the Odisha had this network was in a very bad shape because there were lot of requirement of maintenance and investments, and so that we are struggling with. The thing which we have already been able to do is think about the requirement of some sort of analytics tools and AI. So now we are I think this is a very pertinent subject for a distribution company to think about AI and ML. Particularly, I will take up 2-3 areas where the first is the definitely the demand forecast, which is the second is also very important, that now we are getting into a lot of RE integration, and that RE integration has a lot to do with the proper weather forecast. So that is very important that we develop a proper weather forecasting tool. We have been trying to integrate our systems with the IMD database and getting some insights, but there are certain issues which we are facing. So we are also now trying to see if we can link up with some of the airlines database for weather forecasting. There are Air Vistara and other people. They have a much more realistic and much more nearer to reality databases, which can be definitely thought about for weather forecasting, which can be another area. And this is a very emerging area because of the huge proliferation and huge development of the RE systems in the country. And the third area, which is very, very important for a distribution company, is the meter reading. Although in the due course there will be smart metering within a period of time. However, the issues which you are facing in meter reading is that the meter reading is actually the basis for correct billing and correct revenue. And many times there are issues that the meter reading is wrongly read. There are issues of suppressed meter reading. There are issues of tabletop meter reading. The meter reader not reaching the site. So what we have seen is a very we have already discussed and launching a AI-based OCR meter reading. The OCR will be backed with a AI-based system, and that will capture the meter reading. Why AI is because there are a lot of issues at site when somebody wants to take a OCR, because there are dust particles, there are scratches on the meter, there are glares on the meter. So the AI is required to help to decipher the digits correctly. Also, the AI helps us to take the meter reading from a meter, not from a calculator, or from a paper written reading or something. So it has to first of all have the intelligence that the person is standing before a correct meter. And first the meter number has to be validated with the system meter data which I have. Then the meter digit has to be deciphered through AIR. So that is a very important area where we have been doing a lot of work, and that has been developed, and it is being launched as a meter reading, where manual punching of meter data will be totally done away with, and the mobile camera will capture the OCR. The AI will sit in the cloud and it will decipher what has been captured, and it will convert it into a correct meter reading. We have been able to reach about 98% accuracy, 99% accuracy from where we started off with. On this, that's a big area where we are going to get into. The other area where we are going to use AI a lot is the heat maps for the meter reader performance as well as the area collection, because our systems captures the GPS coordinates of the meters, and that with that we can develop the heat maps of where the area lies, where the meter readings have been taken from, and where so the next time onwards the system will automatically develop that artificial intelligence that yes, this is the correct meter reading which is being taken. So that is another area. And the fourth area is the network and asset management, which can be done with we have done that complete network load flow studies and also the artificial intelligence of the voltage profiles and the other parameters through software like SIMDIST, where we had engaged PRDC and TPDDL to get us do that. That actually has a lot of artificial intelligence to see that how we can actually simulate the network on the computer and do a lot of changing of the size of the conductors, the length of the conductors, the route of the conductors, which will of the lines, which will give exactly how the field realities can be modified through the AI, which is already there in the system. The last thing I would talk about is the integration of SCADA, GIS, the ADMS system, and the CRM, which is another big bucket artificial intelligence, which can be of great help to a distribution company. We have started working in that direction because SCADA gives a lot of data on the events and the alarms and the performance parameters of the entire network, which gives a lot of insights into the GIS. The GIS is the spatial representation. If the spatial representation and the parameters of which feeder is off, which is on, which is having an issue can be represented on the GIS, and if that system can be integrated with the CRM in the front end, where the call center people and the consumers are interacting, so we have entire thing which is built before the consumers, and it can be of great help. So that SCADA, GIS, and the CRM integration or the OMS and the ADMS system, that can be a great help, which we have already started off working on. So these are the areas which I feel where a lot of opportunities exist. And I would not repeat the same point which Mr. Sakib has already mentioned, that the smart meters will be giving a plethora of data, but the proper analytics to be developed, meaningful insights to be developed, needs a lot of study. Even if you have data, it does not end there. So my reading is that if the data is not properly analyzed or proper dashboards are developed in a very meaningful way, it won't help. So that is what my intake is, that whatever you, it has to be properly thought through and analyzed and very meaningfully interpreted and represented. Then only it will be giving us the due result. So I'll stop here and I'll take more questions as we go.
Sure, I'll also come back to you, but quite well summarized that whatever data is generated, it has to be effectively mapped also. Here, let me bring in Anil Kolab, Director Operations of Maharashtra State Electricity Distribution. Anil Kolab, maybe that you would like to add some more points to what Bhaskar Sarkar just mentioned.
Specifically, looking towards the today's scenario of load growth and demand, and very much change in the scenario of the power sector. Whatever Bhaskar sir had said, it is a yes, necessary, and it is a startup. As far as my concern is in the transmission sector, because I am a holding of basic transmission asset management, transmission system operations, real-time operations, then load dispatch center and state utility STU. So in this perspective, basically in morning only we had interaction with Abhinav regarding this utilization of the SAS for various data management and analytics to use the SCADA data, SCADA inputs, then metadata inputs, so that we can properly forecast the load. We can have load management, load forecasting. Nowadays, the things have been changed. We have to switch out from normal thermal or fossil fuel to renewables. So integration of renewable is a big challenge in today's power sector. See, wind is coming in different scenarios. In Maharashtra specifically, the wind is coming in monsoon season when the demand is very much less, and we have to cope up that wind energy. So how to utilize that wind power is also one of the challenge for Maharashtra distribution as well as transmission, because in the low load condition, in the rainy seasons, we have to utilize that power. So on behalf of even MSCDCL can have some look into the integration of this integration of this wind power. So they have one way to utilize it in condition, in a scenario that banking of the power, because in northern area the demand is more in this atmospheric condition, whereas Maharashtra has got a low demand, so they can bank the power with northern states. So that is one more important aspect for grid management point of view aspect. Second thing is, is to use this renewables for storage of the energy, for the grid management, like battery storage or hybrid utilization of this energy. So now specifically we are talking about Mumbai islanding or Mumbai embedded generation, where this energy can be effectively used in storage systems, so that battery storage can be utilized for grid operation effectively, meeting the peaking load or in frequency management conditions. So battery is also one of the thing which can be used effectively. Similarly, we have to tackle with the grid operation in condition of the climatic changes, climatic conditions, or atmospheric condition, where when we have a lot of power cut due to major outages on the major transmission lines, where we may use the latest technology like drone, like diagnostic testing, so that those can be effectively utilized for system healthiness, system condition and trim conditions. So what Sarkar sir said, on the same grounds in the transmission system, can effectively use this analytics of the SCADA, analytics of the AMR. Recently, MSCTCL has installed around about 3,000 nodal meters. So those data can be utilized for effective forecasting, effective scheduling of the power, because Maharashtra has a typical area where multiple distributions are working. Like in Mumbai, we have private distributions, Tata, Adani and DST, whereas in the rest of Maharashtra, MSCDCL, they are working independently. Similarly, in Maharashtra, we have different transmission companies also, JSW, then Adani Transmission. So we have to take all these utilities on a common platform, so that this data can be used effectively for proper and economic dispatch of the load. So these are my input from the S2 point of view, or from the SLDC point of view, or as an operation point of view of MSCTCL.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let me bring in Prashad Reshme here. He is Director Projects, MIC-DCL, Distribution Company Limited, both representing distribution and transmission respectively. So Prashad Reshme ji, your thoughts on this topic, please, AI and ML in the power sector.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Prasad Reshme. I am working as Director Project in MSCDCL. As all of you know, MSCDCL is the biggest electricity distribution utility in the country. with the 2.85 crores of the consumers all over the Maharashtra, except some part of Mumbai. The entire distribution is responsibility of distribution in entire Maharashtra except part of Mumbai. It is the responsibility of MSEDCL. So technological advancement is being done by the MSEDCL long back. And now we are marching towards the more and more advanced technologies to be used. So as here explained by Mr. Sarkar, I fully agree that artificial intelligence is the future of this distribution utility. You know, for the purpose of smooth running of the distribution system, for the purpose of good consumer services, correct billing, correct reading, then reduction in AT&C losses, load forecasting. All you required is the technological advancement or technological updation in the present distribution utilities. So MSEDCL has taken a lot of technological steps. I think this is a good platform to explain the various steps taken by MSEDCL, and we are upgrading it to more and more fine technologies. So presently, for the purpose of the billing and distribution of bills to the consumers, MSEDCL has developed a centralized IT system for which the meter readers and everyone, proper mobile application is given to the meter readers, and all is done on the real-time basis. The meter reader goes to the consumer. At the same time, the readings are issued by the centralized server, and in the subsequent time, the bills are issued. So this has helped MSEDCL to reduce the billing complaints, and presently with 98 to 99% of the accuracy, we can give electric bills to the consumers, which resulted in the proper collection of the electricity bills and proper accounting of the energy, because this is also very necessary to calculate the aggregate technical and commercial losses. The other thing is that for the consumer services, MSEDCL has developed a full-fledged mobile application wherein all the services are given under one roof. So if anyone requires a new electric connection, he need not to come to our office. He can apply online through mobile application and he will get the electric connection. Our engineers will visit to the doorstep of the consumer for release of these connections. Then for the regular operations like availability of the power, any disruption, any breakdowns, that intimation is already given to the consumer well in advance through this mobile app, so that the consumer is already prepared for the power cuts if any. Rather, we also give the information that in how much time we are going to restore his power. So it gives a delightment to the consumer. Somehow he is assured that MSEDCL is giving them good services. Then for improvement of the collection efficiency, the online collection system is developed, which is in-house development by MSEDCL, called as OCCS. So any consumer can pay his electric bill anywhere. This facility is given by the MSEDCL. For this purpose, we have prepared our own Maha Power Pay mobile application, wherein all these electric bill collections and everything can be done. And any net banking, credit card, debit card, UPI wallets are linked to this system, so that there is a hassle-free payment of electricity bills or electricity dues by the consumers to MSEDCL. Then, of course, power theft and controlling power theft is a bigger challenge in distribution utilities, as all of us know. So, to get the proper information of this, so meters with automatic meter reading features, especially for the ST consumer and some high-value LT consumers, we have provided these meters. And in future, we are going to provide smart meters, as the speakers before me have explained the features of smart meters. But presently, automatic meter reading system is available for the ST consumers and high-value LT consumers, where all the readings are available to MSEDCL centralized server by on real-time basis. At the same time, the various tamper data, as you know, when there is any interference, if anyone makes with the meter, So that data is captured by our IT system, and it is available for our engineers to analyze the things and to visit the consumer premises for any theft or any irregularity. So this helped us in reduction of the power theft of especially high value consumers. Then, as I said, that in the RDSS scheme, the smart meter deployment is already considered, and around 2 crores smart meters will be engaged by MSEDCL, and this will really turn down the complete operation of MSEDCL. And presently, the losses of MSEDCL are to the tune of 15%. AT&C losses I am talking about. So with the deployment of the smart meter and this technological advancement, maybe in the coming 3 to 4 years, we can reach to 12% of the losses as envisaged by the government of India after implementation of this RDSS scheme. So I think at the same time, for this load forecasting, we are in the process of deploying some artificial intelligence based software. And I think for that purpose, some consultant appointment is going on. So that in the coming future, MSEDCL will update itself. So I think, as said by my earlier speakers here, the technological advancement and use of artificial intelligence will turn down the economics of this power sector in future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad. It's quite well put. Let me bring in here our industry leader, industry expert, consultant for energy and utilities, Avinav Sood. Avinav, we had here the administrators from the utility sector. All of them are unanimous in the view that technology is the need of the hour, and technology is only the medium through which a complete revamp and reform and transformation of the sector is possible. We would like to hear from you, Avinav, your views regarding what all areas do you think where AI and ML can play a major role in enabling this transformation of the sector.
Sure, Krishna, thank you. And thank you everybody for sharing your valuable thoughts. We all learn from you each and every day. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. I only want to highlight a few more things. I think we did touch a lot upon as to how analytics could be leveraged in the power sector and what are the business problems which we are trying to solve. And in my personal opinion, I believe that analytics will play a key role in order to ensure the commercial viability of the power distribution sector per se, right? And in ensuring in increasing the operational efficiency of the transmission sector also. So I think these two will be the major areas wherein analytics is going to play a key role. So we have touched upon all the topics around renewable forecasting. We did discuss upon various methods we are deploying right now to improve the efficiency of discoms. But there is one critical factor which we have not discussed, and I will be discussing that part. That will be the growth of demand only, which we are going to foresee. So when we talk about the speeches from the Honorable Prime Minister, he always talks about the $5 trillion economy. And there's a big push coming towards the manufacturing sector, and we all know how important manufacturing sector plays in the overall consumption profile of the country. Now there's a concept called electricity GDP elasticity, right? So in order to increase the GDP of country by say 1%, the power sector as a whole and the demand of the electricity in the country has to go up by at least 3 to 4%, right? So we can only assume that if you have to achieve a growth rate of around 8 to 10%, then what is the kind of demand growth we're expecting in the country in the coming 2 to 3 years, right? And usually, in order to cater to this demand, it is very difficult to set up generation companies in such a small amount of time. So it is very difficult to install a thermal station within a 2-year time. So usually the major emphasis and how these kind of numbers would be achieved is from optimization standpoint, right? We have to ensure that we are able to supply good quality, reliable power to our consumers in a cost-effective manner. That's most important for these manufacturing industries to work. Now, I do agree with Mr. Bhaskar and Mr. Anil and Mr. Prasad, who have specifically called out here, we are investing heavily in ITOT. And basis our experience, we have seen that from 2003 onwards, we are investing heavily from RAPDRP, from SCADA, from IPDS, now it is RDSS. So heavy investments are going in the ITOT landscape. And we did see the numbers. So Bhaskar sir already spoke about losses, which are very minimal in Odisha. Now they are continuously improving. while in MSCDCL they're already at 15%, right? So a lot of investment has gone into the hardware part of things. Now it will be more important for you to generate some insights from the data, right? That is going to be the key to unlock your potential and bring these losses to the 12% number which we are trying to hit, right? So there are four major areas, I believe, apart from these factors which I mentioned, which are going to play a key role in the overall, from analytics standpoint, in the overall power sector for India. So the focus will be primarily on supply side, because a lot of there will be not much supply. We are any which ways going through a supply crunch as we speak, which the team I'm sure will be available for. All the thermal plants right now are running short of coal, so a lot of issues are there also. So major focus will be on forecasting, that is to understand what is the kind of demand I need to cater to. Also from forecasting standpoint, it is not just the demand which has to be forecasted, it is the generation forecast from renewable standpoint, because now it is very easy for any consumer to go and buy a solar panel module and deploy it on their home and run their air conditioner and water heaters from that module itself. So, and if you look at the overall consumption profile of a conventional domestic consumer, the air conditioning and the heating load plays a major role in the peak demand for the consumer. And if the peak demand is varying, they're forecasting to go haywire, which will result in huge losses for distribution company, which will result in further issues in the power sector. So in order to address that problem, the generation forecasting will also play a key role. Similarly, if you look at the schemes which are coming out, FAME scheme is already there, right, which allows you to get some subsidies on the electric vehicles. And we are only seeing major push. Delhi government is one of the pioneers who are doing that. Many states are actually coming out with schemes. So with more advent of these electric vehicles, and there's a big push toward data center also. So the entire load profile which we are seeing right now will not be similar from in the upcoming next 2 to 3 years. So major focus is going to be on that side, and that is why supply side forecasting and optimization, very specifically optimization and pricing of contracts, has to be done by a data-driven method. I think that is one area which will really help out. If you look at the overall value of power purchase cost in component in the overall cost of supply, it is around 70 to 80%. So if your tariff is around 10 rupees, around 8 rupees is the power purchase cost itself. If you are able to bring that cost down, it will result in huge savings for everybody across the value chain, including the end consumers. So I think that is one area where analytics will play a key role. The second one would be the loss reduction part. A lot of emphasis is actually going in, and funds are being provided for reducing these losses. And like I said, premier utilities like Maharashtra, they have already brought down their losses to 15%. They have already invested heavily in IT OT landscape, and now they will experience diminishing returns. Right, so now more they invest, the returns will not be proportionate. But what is important is to make sense of their investments right now. So those heavy investments which have happened across the power sector, we have to make sense of the data which is already being generated and generate some actionable insights for the field department. So I would just want to highlight one point which Mr. Prasad mentioned. He specifically called out that we are generating insights for our linemen to go and check. Now it is very important for us to also evaluate whether lineman is actually going and checking. And from smart metering standpoint, whether the lineman, if for example there's a hooking case, right, the hooking happens usually during the night. If the lineman is going in the day and going and checking, then he'll not find anything. That will be more of a false positive. So we have to change the mode of communication also, apart from the message itself. So we have to tell them as to what point in time, who is supposed to go, is there a collusion between the lineman or the consumer or not. So all these insights are actually generated by the system. And that's where the power of AI is going to shine. So these will be the major 2-3 areas apart from smart meter standpoint, wherein we'll be primarily focusing on to improve the overall health of the power distribution sector.
Good insight. Yeah, good insight, Mr. Abhinav. Prasad Reshmeji, would you like to comment on the point raised by Abhinav that even if you have deputed linesmen for checking the data, what is the guarantee that there is not a collusion between the linesmen?
I have not said that the linesmen are deputed. I said that automatic meter reading module is already deployed in the field, so that any abnormality with the parameters of electric parameters can be sensed at our centralized server only. And accordingly, our lineman visits to the consumer, where he gets it confirmed that some malpractices is being carried out or being taken place at the consumer end. So this is a source for us to find out the electricity theft. The same thing when we advance ourselves to the smart meters and with the availability of AI data, this will be done for all the consumers. Presently, we are doing this for the high value consumers. But in that case, when we deploy these smart meters, it will be possible for each and every consumer. So when consumer knows that if he makes any interference with the meter, the moment he makes the interference, immediately any officer from state utility rushes to his place. Then there will be some, control on the theft of electricity. So that is what the purpose of this smart meters and artificial intelligence and the implementation of this system into distribution system.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Prasad Rishme, for putting things in perspective here. Let me bring in here Mr. Bhaskar Sarkar. Bhaskar, Abhinav raised a very valid and pertinent point. He raised the issue of GDP, electricity, elasticity. And he's right in the point that if India aspires to become a $5 trillion economy, there is going to be a phenomenal rise in the on the demand side. And while he mentioned that it may not be physically possible to invest and overall transform the demand side in a shorter span of time, he did mention about optimization. I hope you will agree when he mentioned that instead of going for creating new generation capacity, let's first optimize what we have. So what are the various initiatives you have been taking there in your area in northern Odisha region to optimize whatever resources you are?
Yeah, this is a very important topic which Abhinav has raised, is the supply side management, which actually, going by the current state of the coal issues, the advent of various renewable generation avenues like wind, solar, hybrid. I think the need of the hour is not only to forecast demand, but also to forecast the right demand mix for every 15-minute time slot, and that mix is very important to decide through a very well organized weather forecasting backed by the RE generation forecasting. Because if that is not correct, because to some extent earlier we had the generation in our control with the coal generation, but more and more we get into RE, things are going to be nature controlled to a large extent. Even if there is a cloud cover, our entire forecast may go for a toss. So the blend of the solar, the wind, and also the how that can be converted into a battery storage, and also the we must not forget the huge potential of hydros, because Maharashtra, I was in Mumbai, so Maharashtra has a very good combination of hydros, and even Odisha has. So that again we must not forget at how this balancing factor of hydros, which is the unique advantage which you get of our hydro, which you cannot get in coal, because coal cannot go down below minimum level, but hydros can be used as a balancing factor. So I think there's a huge area which rightly brought out by Abhinav, that the supply side, the how can we go around the correct mix of all these types of new power generation avenues which are coming, and how do you balance and optimize your requirement and your generation and your supply requirements through the balancing and optimizing of all these sources, is actually a very huge AI potential and a very huge area of analytics which is required. And also this has a lot to do with the demand forecasting being integrated with the weather forecasting, integrated with the RE forecasting, with the forecasting of coal availability and the transportation, all such issues. So it's actually a huge chapter which, if properly done, everybody will get, and that is the need of the hour. To that we can add the issue of the transmission issues, because the transmission capacities have developed in a certain way, assuming a growth or the generation in a certain way. Now suddenly during the day the huge volume of RE will come up, it will suddenly go down. In the evening, suddenly some load of the wind will come up in a certain pocket. So it's actually going to be, as Mr. Kolap was mentioning, it's going to be a nightmare of how to optimize the transmission facilities and how to sort of forecast the requirement of the transmission network. So the generation optimization, the transmission optimization in the current setup of the migration into a huge volume of RE is going to be a big area where we need to get, and that is what I think will be required to properly integrate or towards the fulfilling of the Prime Minister's vision. It's a very important point. Other point I wanted to add, to what Mr. Rashmi added is the meter is a source of a huge amount of information. If properly analyzed and if properly interpreted, the meter can really, as I absolutely agree with Mr. Rashmi, that can definitely give a lot of insights into how the analytics can be developed, and that can go into the forecasting also, if properly interpreted and properly integrated. The other part is we need to also think of how we can optimize on the manpower required for this billing and collection. So we need to also get into a mode like the telecom is today, from what it was earlier. We don't need to have people going to take readings. In fact, we have launched a product called My Tata Power app, where the consumer is given the benefit of doing the self meter reading themselves. Just from his mobile, he can take the meter reading, which will be deciphered through artificial intelligence based OCR interpretation, and he can generate his own bill. He can pay the bill through the same system. So here we can save a lot in terms of the cost of the billing and collection. This is a huge cost, which also Abhinav mentioned that we have to optimize, and that can be a sea change in it. And the other thing is that building avenues for collection, integrating with the telecom avenues, which is already available they have a very good spread of their payment banks and outlets. So can the distribution companies go ahead and tie up with them instead of having our own brick and mortar collection counters or something which the consumers will have to walk a lot or travel a lot, particularly in a rural setup. So if we can tie up with such telecom outlets for collection of the walk-in consumers, then we can do away with the collection cost. And also, if we can integrate with the number of online arrangements, as Mr. Prasad was also saying. So this can really save a huge amount which we spend today for billing and collection. And definitely the back-end IT systems have to be made very, very strong and robust to ensure that the proper governance, proper check and quality check of the billing and reading is done on the go, as and when these collections or the meter readings happen by the consumer or automatically through the online portals. So these are the things where a lot of opportunities exist in terms of the artificial intelligence, machine learning, and also analytics.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar. Let me ask one quick question from Mr. Anil Kolap. Anil Kolap, if you can kindly put on your camera, please. If you are still around. Mr. Kolap.
Yes, I am live.
Yeah. One thing which has propped up during this discussion is that optimization of existing capacity or optimization of existing operations is more essential rather than going for fresh investments, whether we talk of generation or transmission or distribution. Could you take us through some of your initiatives? Yeah, please go ahead.
I want to add something. What Sarkarji is saying. Really, today challenge is in addition of the transmission capacity, and not only transmission, it is also in distribution level. We have to add in transmission lines, then substations. But real challenge is on putting up the transmission lines in existing corridors. Because cities like Mumbai or Delhi or Pune, very crucial thing is to lay down the transmission lines. So we have to adopt the latest technology like using the stainless conductors, high tension, low sag conductors, or going with monopole towers, so that the foundations or the land required for the tower footings may get reduced. Narrow gauge towers, then multi-circuit towers. Recently, everyone is using, but still we have to make more progress in these aspects. So today, okay, some there are cost impact on using of the stainless conductor or narrow gauge towers. But still, we have to go with this new technologies or new techniques to adopt the existing corridors. Previously, also I expressed regarding the integration of this renewable energies. Even Sarkarji also told the same thing. So the challenge is to grid management in today's conditions. Similarly, Abhinav also expressed about using the analytical data coming to the not only distribution companies, even it can be used for the state transmission utilities, where we have different corridors, city STUT connectivities or within region connectivities, from where power has to be controlled on regional way also. In Mumbai, we have a typical 2-3 interconnecting lines.
Yeah, but also I would like to interrupt here. I have just been informed that Mr. Reshme has to go somewhere. So I'll come back to Mr. Anil Kulap for your concluding remarks. Before Mr. Reshme actually leaves, let me have a quick concluding thought from this side also.
All right.
How much time do I have, Mr. Reshme? Are you actually leaving, or we have some margin?
Yes, I can wait for 5 minutes because that meeting has already been started.
Okay, you please give us your concluding remarks. You can carry on because then I have to go back to Anil Kola, followed by remarks from Avinav and Sarkar.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Basically, it is really a good discussion regarding deployment of artificial intelligence in the power system, as you know, for the effective utilization of the assets as well as giving good services to the consumers. So basically, I would like to add something to Mr. Bhaskar said, that the combination of renewable energy and increasing renewable energy is becoming a challenge sometimes. So to resolve this, in my mind, like the state in Maharashtra state, heating and cooling load is already there, but at the same time, agriculture load also plays a major role, because excluding the rainy days, in other days, there is a huge demand of agriculture load. So in Maharashtra, total around 48 lakh consumers are there for the agriculture connections, and the demand is around 6,000 to 8,000 megawatt on a grid. So if we integrate the solar power with this agriculture, so there is a benefit of agriculture consumers that they will get daytime power supply. Like in Maharashtra, the agriculture consumer gets 3 days daytime power supply and 4 days nighttime power supply. So the balance can be done, that daytime power supply can be integrated, and the solar power can be assigned to these agriculture consumers, and we can give power supply to all these agriculture consumers. And the other thing is that deployment of the battery storage system. So it will help us to flatten the load curve of our system. So this is my addition to the point raised by Mr. Bhaskar here. By the way, it is very nice discussion and very good insight by all the participants here. So thank you very much for giving me a chance to attend this conclave. Thank you. Look forward to attend this in future also. Thank you, Elets and their team.
Certainly, we will look forward to hosting you in more of the future opportunities, Mr. Prasad Reshme. That was Prasad Reshme, Director Projects, Maharashtra State Electricity Distribution Company Limited. Thank you for your insight. It was a pleasure hosting you, and we'll continue with the panel. So Anilji, I come back to you, and after that, I'll quickly go to Abhinav Sood for his closing comments, followed by Bhaskar Sarkar. So Anilji, you are saying something. You please conclude.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Only I am just continuing with what Bhaskar said, integration of the renewable power and maintaining the existing corridors and existing transmission network and optimizing the transmission network. That is also one challenge. Overall, in morning also we had interaction with Abhinav, the data coming to SLDC, data coming to various substations of transmission substations. We have a lot of data. So those data can be integrated, can be put together, and we had one good analytical forecasting, so that not only for distribution forecasting, it is for a state as a transmission company or as a state STU. One can properly forecast for the state demand as a whole when there are multiple distribution companies, so that one can have a proper capacity utilization of the existing network, so as to facilitate open access, then cheaper power flow into the state. So these are some in and outs of using the analytics of the meter data and proper utilization of the transmission capacity. So that is what I want to add with Mr. Bhaskarji.
Thank you, Mr. Kolap. Thank you, Mr. Kolap.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kolap. Abhinav Sood once again here, our industry consultant for energy and utilities, SS India. Abhinav, could you mention some of the case studies or business problems which can be solved by advanced analytic techniques, which can help in achieving the targets set by the central government, specifically in the Indian distribution sector?
Sure. So
any specific example, any case study, business problems which you think can be solved by advanced analytics? Abhinav.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think we have extensively discussed the role of forecasting and optimization in the distribution space. I would also like to highlight and raise one case study, and maybe I shall share some insights regarding the same, so that everybody could understand as to what all could be achieved. Electricity, if you look at the various reports which have come out, it is the second most stolen entity in the world, right? The first most stolen entity in the world is credit card theft, right? So that is, the credit card theft is number one, electricity theft is number two. So we can't beat around the bush that, even though our collection efficiency is 100%, doesn't mean there is theft in our system. Theft is happening everywhere. There are multiple kind of thefts which are happening. There is category misuse, fixed cost theft. Multiple things are happening as we speak, right? I will not go in detail in the paucity of time. But what we have seen, Indian power distribution companies, they are working from 75 years now, right? And from the past 25 years, if you look at the initiatives running by the distribution companies, they're all focused on loss reduction, right? Every new scheme which will come out, it will be for loss reduction. Even the RDSS which has come out, which is a flagship project, is a 3 lakh crore budget which has been given by the central government around the same. The major and the single most thing which the distribution company has to do is loss reduction, right? So now, how do we do it, right? So we have done everything, like Bhaskar sir and the team mentioned. We are deploying meters, right? Meter deployment is one part of it. We can bill everything, but doesn't mean that we are billing it right, and doesn't mean we are charging them right. That is more important. And we have to always understand that the criminals and the perpetrators, they always find new ways to cheat the system, right? And we have found multiple cases wherein, even though the collection efficiency was very good, the bill was going on time, still category misuse was happening. There's a fraud of 7 crore rupees. So this kind of cases we have found ample number of time. Now we have discussed the problem. I'll talk about how do we go about solving it, right? So based on our experience from the past 15 years, we as a company and SAS, we have been extensively working on solving this loss reduction problem. And what we have observed is that you have to provide a solution which takes care of the complete data analytics lifecycle, right? So we start off with a data management, which Collapser mentioned sometime back. Data management and data integration is very important, because you will have multiple billing systems, such huge license areas, multiple payment channels. Bhaskar sir mentioned about and now Even Ministry of Power is emphasizing that customers should have options of making payments, right? There will be multiple payment channels through which payments are happening. There are multiple bank accounts of every distribution company. They all have to integrate it because money is flowing through that. So making use of that value chain, specifically the cash value chain, is very important. And so data management will be the first part which will take care of this problem. Second, the data quality part. The systems which we are talking about, some of them are 15 years old. The historical data, the scalar data which we talk about, is a lot of data which is there, 10, 15 years old. So the quality standards which were followed at that point in time are currently not that relevant. So we have to upgrade them to the most recent quality standards. And then the other capabilities from statistical analysis standpoint, from artificial intelligence standpoint, from streaming analytics standpoint. And streaming analytics is very important. So we talk about meters, right? The most important thing of having a smart meter is that it will provide you data in real time. Now you imagine it was mentioned that you have around 3 crore consumers, around 2.5 to 3 crore consumers in your license area. With you, if you deploy meters even on 33% of the population, if 1 crore meters are deployed and you're getting data from 1 crore meters, it is manually impossible to track as to how many events are being generated. It is impossible to do. So you need a machine learning model which has been fine-tuned as per your own business requirement, which could be deployed, and some insights could be actionable insights could be generated on top of it, right? So from streaming analytics standpoint, from artificial intelligence standpoint, and uh, from statistical analysis standpoint, all of that has to be part of the solution. And then the last and the most important part is the visualization and the consumption layer. So even if I'm sitting at a control center and I'm able to identify that, I have identified these 5,000 consumers who are actually committing fraud, right? It is very important for me to give that insight to the lineman in a effective way so that he can go and make the necessary payment from the customer, right? He can go and charge the customer appropriately. Because what is happening is even if we are able to generate the alerts, the lineman does not have the tools and the know-how to go and collect the payments. Right? So this is something which we have to enable, that the message which we are generating at the control center should be appropriately cascaded down the line so that the team can actually go and make the requirement change, because that is where the money is going to come from. And at the end of the day, every business is ROI driven, right? We have to improve our efficiency. So if you have the complete analytics layer, which all the components starting from data management to analytics to visualization and streaming analytics, all of those four covered, you'll be able to make some substantial return. Regarding a case study, I want to highlight there is one case study which we did, a big utility. They had a very big market share when it comes to the overall revenue of the country. When we started engaging with them, their overall detection rate was around 35%, right? And they were very proud, we are getting so much detection and things are going fine. Within a span of 4 months of engagement, we were able to bring that detection rate of 35% to 50%, right? And that resulted in cost savings of around 50 crores per year for them. So you have to understand 50 crores per year if you are saving, and the grants which you are getting, that is huge revenue for you, and that is all going to impact your tariff. So I think analytics components, specifically from advanced analytics standpoint, will be the key player and the key value proposition which will unlock the value for the power distribution sector.
Quite well said, Avinash. Using analytics for unlocking the true value of India's power sector. Bhaskar Sarkar, any comments, closing comments?
Actually, what I mentioned in my initial comments has been resounded by Abhinav. Actually, that is the major, challenge, because data you can get. Smart meters have data, and we are very happy that we'll get all the data. SCADA systems have data. We are very happy we are getting all the data. Okay, meters, all my meters, AMR, everything will give a whole lot of huge volume of data, and that is not a problem. The problem is how to intelligently interpret the data, combine the data, and develop into analytics for every level. The CEO wants to look at the data in a certain way. The field superintending engineers, they want to look at it in a certain way, and the linemen have to look at it in a certain way. So how are we interpreting the data and giving the proper insight of the data to the relevant layer for them to take actionable inputs is the biggest challenge, and that is easier said than done. I think analytics, proper interpretation of the data for every layer is a huge challenge, and I think we have to work really hard on that to get to that level. And that is very well said by Avinav. And if you have done case studies, and many people are struggling, to actually bring that insight. The other point which I missed, which has been touched and by Prasad, I'll just elaborate on that, is that the area of distribution network management is also going to be a big challenge going future, because now, like Delhi has already come up some time back with the virtual net metering and the group net metering regulations. Recently, Odisha has brought those regulations. The day is not far, and we have also tried that on a pilot basis, that the peer-to-peer trading will start because of the rooftop units being there in everybody's roof, and there being an opportunity for selling the because that will continue to generate whether you use it or like it or not. You cannot control the sun god. As it shines, the units will come out. But the peer-to-peer trading is a platform which is there in many other countries, and that is picking up here also. There are some case studies which has been done with the UP Regulatory Commission and other, that in the future this is again going to be a huge analytics as well as distribution data management challenge, that how do we enable a system of enabling the rooftop users to become prosumers. The term has already been defined by the union government also. Another aspect I would just leave behind is that the electricity amendment is also going to come and to leave an area of huge competition in the distribution business. So we have to tighten our belts and think about how can we optimize, and every cost is important. Like Abhinav said, we have to really think about that, and that's an area which needs a lot of consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar Sarkar. Gentlemen, I can just see on the screen here one more panelist, Dr. S.R. Anand, Director Transmission, Kerala State Electricity Board. Very warm welcome, Dr. Anand.
Thank you. With an expression for sorry that
yes, we are at the fag end of the discussion. It has been a very engaging and enriching discussion. It has been a very fantastic discussion, Dr. Anand. Okay. So we were discussing the role of AI and ML in the power sector. Okay. So we had Mr. Anil Kolab, Director Transmission, Director Operations from Maharashtra State Transcom. Then we had Mr. Prasad Deshme, Director Projects from Maharashtra State Discom. We had Bhaskar Sarkar, Dr. Bhaskar Sarkar, the Chief Executive of Tata Power Northern Odisha Discom. And before that, we had Dr. Saket Kumar, MD of Uttar Haryana Bijli Nigam. We have been discussing the role of AI and ML in reforming India's power sector. And Abhinav Sood is there here, our industry expert, industry consultant for energy and utilities from SAS India. So we just discussed Abhinav, Anil, Bhaskar Sarkar. They all gave us very interesting insight on how the new emerging technologies like AI and ML can help us in unlocking the value of India's power sector. Your comments on it?
Yeah, regarding implementation of what new technologies, AI and ML, it has been very limited in, especially in Kerala, we have a very limited exposure on that. Other than energy forecasting and sale forecasting, we don't have any kind of application of new technology in operation here. But in near future, what we intend to do is that we are anyway going with the implementation of this smart meters. And with the smart meters in picture, the consumer is already he's having now he is only having a one-way communication. That is, the power is reaching him and bill is also reaching him. But some other information the consumer will be getting from the electricity conditions of the grid, and he can adjust himself to the requirements, his requirements matching to the conditions of the grid, so that he can save something. So that kind of a situation could be emerging. And there is another situation where the grid requires a control over the consumer also. Like, consumer is not a consumer, I mean, passive consumer now is generating. Most of the consumers are generating power. So we need to have a control over that. That has been experienced in several European countries and in US also. That the rooftop generation is a typical villain where we have a condition where we have surplus, demand is showing very low because of the behind meter generation. So some of the European countries have already legislated that all the inverters shall be controllable through the SCADA. So that kind of a condition has to come in India. Maybe in another couple of years, we may be coming into that because we are moving on a very fast trajectory in the integration of solar energy and wind energy also. So once the renewable content is increasing like anything, then we have an immediate requirement of going into such kind of controls extended to the consumers also. So that needs, naturally, we cannot have a human interface in between to take a decision. So that means we need to have a kind of AI-based, machine learning-based system which will give inputs to the operator and to take corrective actions immediately, whatever is required. Like if you take the persistent conditions, if it is going from a normal state to an alert state, or from it has to be saved from further deterioration, then the system itself has to take a kind of action. And if the time is permitting, then it can leave it to the operator. It can give some kind of expert advices to the operator. So such expert systems are already in development in academic world. It is available. Some of the countries are practicing it. But I think none of the states in Kerala, I mean, in India, is currently doing that. In Kerala, we have a limitation that we are not very rich in RE sources also. All these developments have to come in RE rich states first. So we are waiting for that. So whatever is conceived as a kind of smart meter implementation is conceived as a kind of building efficiency improvement and other things. That is not the real reason behind the smart meter implementation. It has a lot more to do that. Data has to be made available. Now we are living in a world where there is limited data is available for us. Primarily the generation data and transmission data. That is the only thing that is available to us in real time. So with that, we are doing whatever is possible. We are doing some kind of what you call load forecast, demand forecast basically. And based on that, some optimization in the power procurement strategies, some portfolio generalizations. Like that we are doing. But more has to come. We need more data for that. That is the present situation as far as I estimate it.
Thank you, Dr. S.R. Anand. Avinash Sood, any question you would like to put up for Dr. S.R. Anand? We just mentioned that though they have started, but it's on an initial phase, not of the full potential what it should have been. He's saying about the role of or deployment of analytics in the state of Kerala. Any question you would like to have for Dr. S.R. Anand?
No, I think thank you so much for sharing those insights, sir. I think you have
So,
covered most of
Avinav,
the
then
points
I would like you to summarize whatever all the speakers have mentioned, including you yourself. Let's have a final concluding word from Avinav Sood.
Yes, thank you so much. So I think there was an excellent discussion. All the esteemed panelists specifically spoke about the various areas and various ways in which AI, ML, and advanced analytics could be leveraged in the overall business scenario of Indian power sector, and we all got to learn various best in class thoughts from the leaders of the department. What I gathered primarily was the focus majorly going forward will be on three areas. It will be primarily in smart metering and making sense of the smart meter data, which was Bhaskar sir explained very specifically. Anil sir mentioned specifically that how transmission companies are looking at data analytics per se, because metering per se, they are already ahead of the curve. So how transmission companies are going to make use of that data from capacity expansion standpoint and from catering demand is these areas, and how advanced analytics will play a key role there from data management, data extraction, and from planning standpoint. Reshma sir specifically called out about the various implementation which they are doing as we speak and their plans for the future, and how we can bring it all together and make sense of the data, and how AI will help them in leveraging data from all those sources. So I think that is one very pertinent point which you mentioned. And then Mr. Anand sir specifically called out as to how smart metering and forecasting will play a key role in the transmission sector. There one case study which we highlighted, which I think will be relevant. And subsequently, I would like to thank everybody for sharing these valuable thoughts with me. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Abhinav. It has been truly a wonderful discussion. The best part was that all the administrators from the utilities sector, either from the state of Maharashtra or Kerala or Haryana or Odisha, they were unanimous on one point, that the future is in technologies like AI, ML, and advanced analytics. The objective of this online conference was to propagate ideas, cross-pollinate best practices, international best practices, which can help us in transformation to India's power sector and helping unleashing its true potential. Thank you once again. This certificate is for Dr. Saket Kumar, Managing Director, Haryana Bijli Vitaran Nigam Limited. Dr. Saket Kumar was the opening speaker, gave his thoughts and laid out the context of this discussion. Our thanks and gratitude to Mr. Bhaskar Sarkar, Chief Executive Officer, Tata Power Northern Odisha Distribution Company Limited. Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar Sarkar.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think we should have more of such discussions. It's a very enlightening discussions, and there's a lot of learning and a lot of scope for understanding the sector more.
Truly said, sir. In fact, as I mentioned, this is the objective. This is an online dialogue, series of online dialogues. We have done multiple dialogues in the past, and we wish to do more such dialogues in collaboration with our industry partner SAS in the coming future as well. Thank you, Mr. Sarkar. Dr. S.R. Anand. Yes, Dr. S.R. Anand, my thanks and gratitude to you also. Finally, you were able to, find out time, although we wanted to hear more from you, but I'm constrained about the timing. So we will have one more round of discussion with you in times to come. Dr. S.R. Anand is serving as Director, Transmission System Operation, Planning and Safety in Kerala State Electricity Board. Thank you, Dr. Anand.
I'm very sorry that I couldn't make it out at the time. I expected only 10 minutes with the CMD and Minister, but it got extended.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Despite your busy schedule, you're able to actually, register your presence in this webinar. And then my thanks and gratitude to Prashad Reshme as well. He also had to rush out to some meeting, but not before he sent and he shared his wisdom on this topic. Mr. Prasad Reshme, Director Projects, Maharashtra State Electricity Distribution Company Limited. Many thanks to you, Mr. Prasad Reshme. And thank you, of course, our another guest from Maharashtra State Electricity Transmission Company Limited, Director of Operations, Anil Kolab. Thank you, Mr. Anil Kolab.
Thank you, Krishnaji.
Last but not the least, the expert comments by Industry Consultant for Energy and Utilities in SAS India have been also beautifully summarized, beautifully put up the entire discussion in context. Thank you, Abhinav.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. Pleasure talking to you all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Krishna. That was indeed a very great moderation by you. And over the course of last couple of hours, we have come across a unanimous, fact and a unanimous decision by all the policymakers that, AI ML powered analytics is definitely the way forward if we have to talk about, minimizing our T&D losses, or if we have to, provide an adequate and effective power supply to the end user. And this was the main objective of organizing today's Power Utilities Conclave, which is being presented by SAS and organized by Elets Technomedia. And as very rightly mentioned by one of the panelists, that we should have more of such conferences or more of such virtual or in-person events. So this is what we are going to this is what you all audience can look forward to in next couple of months again, and we'll be back with more such editions, both in person and virtual one. And with this, I, Anuj, on the behalf of eGov Magazine, would like to thank all the viewers for being a very patient listener. I hope we were able to make justice to your time. And in case you have any queries or any questions regarding our today's session, you can reach out to us, and you can write in the chat window which is there in your platform, or you can also mail to our website inquiry@elets.in, or our experts will get back to you as soon as possible. And until next time, this is Anuj wishing you all a very great evening ahead. Thank you so much. Namaskar.